insane. Oh, don't worry, I got it. Okay, whose was that?
Hi everyone, thank you all so much for being here tonight with us. My name is Julia, I use they, them pronouns, and I run a team at Bookstore Magic, the independent bookstore located just down the street that way. We're really excited to have this event tonight. Before we get started, just a few quick housekeeping notes. First, a big thank you to St. Anne's for letting us use this space that is honestly so perfect for this book's vibe. At the end of the talk, we are going to be doing an audience Q&A, and that's going to be at this microphone in the center aisle. So we'll let you know once it's time to start lining up for that. Lastly, I know many of you did get a book with your ticket, but we do have additional books available where you checked in at the back there, and you can go ahead and purchase those before coming back in for the signing line after the event. And the last thing is, if you're looking for a bathroom, there's a doorway just back this way. It'll lead you to a big open room. At the back of that room are the bathrooms. Okay, with all of that out of the way, I am so excited to introduce Roshani, Chokshi, and Gong, who are joining us tonight to celebrate the release of Roshani's newest book, The Last Tale of the Flower Bride. So I first discovered Roshani when I read The Gilded Wolves a few years ago, and I was just completely taken in by her lush prose, the captivating ways she plays with different mythologies. And I'm happy to report that The Last Tale of the Flower Bride, which is Roshani's first foray into writing for adults, is everything I first fell in love with about her writing. It's rich, it's dark, it's original, and it's full of fable-like storytelling that had me absolutely entranced. It also explores themes of power, lies, wealth, and beauty, and I know it's going to be a hit with both Roshani's previous fans and so many new readers, including all of you here tonight. And I'm just so honored to be celebrating Flower Bride with you all tonight. Roshani Chokshi is the New York Times best-selling author of books for middle grade and young adult readers that draw on world mythology and folklore. Her series include The Star-Touched Queen duology, The Gilded Wolves, and Ari Shah and the End of Time, which was recently optioned for film by Paramount Pictures. She lives in Atlanta, Georgia. And as I mentioned, Roshani is joined in conversation tonight by Gong. Chloe is the #1 New York Times bestselling author of the critically acclaimed Secret Shanghai novels, as well as the Flesh and False Gods trilogy. She is a recent graduate at the University of Pennsylvania, where she double majored in English and International Relations. Born in Shanghai and raised in Auckland, New Zealand, Chloe is now located in New York City, pretending to be a real adult. All right, that's all from me for now, so please give a very warm welcome to these two.
Oh, my microphone's not on. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for that introduction. First of all, happy birthday!
Thank you. I can't believe we're in this space. It's ridiculous. Also, I need to just get this out of the way because my brain isn't cooperating with me as much. As you can tell, I'm incubating a kraken. My husband and I are thrilled. The Kraken will be released sometime in June, but we're still trying to keep it a little private. So photos, videos are totally fine. Maybe just put words over my bump, if you don't mind. Also, the Gemini Kraken. Fun fact, and I've told Chloe this, so it's not that awkward. It's a little awkward. Actually, I found out I was pregnant the day that we hung out. And we had dinner, and I found out I was having a girl, and I put all this weird, misplaced maternal angst on her by the end of the night. I was like, show me your phone. Who are you speaking to? Do you really know them? And she had no idea. She was
It was like my second date with my now boyfriend. And Roshani's like, love is a strange thing.
I was practicing.
It was nice, I really liked it.
Good. I'm glad.
But I'm so glad that I get to be here celebrating your adult debut now. It feels very, well, I guess it's not full circle because it's not circular from us getting dinner in Atlanta.
It's true.
But it is like, you know, full crescent moon until the next time we do an event at some point.
It'll be great.
Yeah, so I'm really happy that we get to celebrate with you on your birthday. How do you feel about the passage of time right now?
What?
Yeah, the passage of time. Or better yet, how was your birthday?
I got to have extra snacks from the flight
Good,
attendant,
good.
which was really important to me. Although how I feel about the passing of time weirdly ties into the book.
It does.
Yeah.
It really does. It's so much fun, so fitting.
Yes. I think so much about this story is the tension of growing up. Like with these two characters, it's this sense, well, there's three characters, but I think the worst part about growing up is being told that magic is no longer meant for you. Like when you think about the Chronicles of Narnia, all the other fantasy children get to go on and have fun, but not you, Susan. You liked lipstick. You get to just stay on this sign and the wardrobe is always closed to you. And I hated that. And I think that those are some of the tensions that are in the story. Yeah.
That's what you're thinking about on your birthday.
That's what I'm thinking about usually.
Yeah.
Because I'm getting older. Sometimes you're in these situations in your existence where you just feel your cells dividing.
Wow.
And you just think,
Oh, wow.
oh my God, here I am. Yeah, I'm just creeping closer to mortality.
Yeah. And on that note, we should start with an elevator pitch.
Right.
You kind of did a bit of a mortality elevator pitch just then. But
Right.
as far as Flower Bride is, you know, the plot and what people can expect to find, you know, let's start with that.
Okay, well, I would say The Flower Bride, I've been repeating myself, but it is the only way that I can describe it. It is a fairy tale, but it is not a fantasy. And like all fairy tales, it may not be real, but it is true. And that's really all I think you need to know about it. You know, there is elements of a marriage, there is an essence of growing up and the tension of that. But I don't want to tell you more than that. I want you to just find it on your own. That book haunted the crap out of me. I've referred to so many of my books as my babies, my children. That one's a Horcrux. Okay? This one's a Horcrux. I'm glad that it is out of my brain, that it has prized itself from my skull, and if I never read it again, I will be so happy. I love that book so much. I also hate it. I hope you love it.
Wow.
That was very poetic.
Good.
Yeah. I always feel like it's the books where you just claw out like a monster that everyone else kind of holds it. And they're like, oh, what a cutie. And you're like, Well, I feel very honored to do this event with you because I discovered you with the Star Touch Queen a while back. And so I got to know your books through Star Touch Queen was your YA debut. Was it? Yes, it was your YA debut. And as I was reading your adult debut, I was just sitting there thinking like, wow, like your beautiful writing will just carry through, like everything. So, which leads into, obviously, as one should expect at a adult debut release, I have to ask the question, you know, the transition from writing for children, for young adults, into writing for adults. And so often people are saying, you know, writing for adults is more complex, but I don't think that's the case. I think a lot of things kind of, you know, transcend across all age categories, but how did you approach that? How did you perceive writing for adults to be something different?
I completely agree with you. I did not notice a big difference with it at all. I think when we talk about the best sort of stories, it's not the sentence level stuff, it's not the shiny premise or the plot. It is simply, does this move you? Yes or no? Did it make you feel something? Yes or no? And when you start with that question of emotional urgency with every single one of those projects, it all comes together. So it wasn't different in that way, but I think having had the privilege of writing so many children's books and being in that space, I think the biggest difference with adults is that you're no longer constrained by time. You know, with children's books, after they get to 18 or 19, you can't call it that anymore. It's like you're limited by this constraint, and I only get to follow you up until this point. Whereas when you're writing an adult, you get to have the past of your childhood inform everything that's happened now in your 30s plus, and that's a whole lot more life to draw from. So that was a real difference for me.
Wow. I'm just sorry, guys. I'm pulling open my questions. It's on the phone screen. Well, I guess that kind of relates into what I want to ask about next when you talk about, you have all of this available to you. Did that feel different working with it while you're plotting or as you're drafting? Because as you're writing adult, you can cover everything, right? You can cover these little flashback scenes, you can cover the present day narrative. Did it feel different to how you were writing, the previous books when you're kind of carrying along this one like heist and now here you're like, you have more room to grow. Did it feel different for that?
I think what felt different was the experiences I was drawing on from. Okay, so for example, it is Valentine's Day. Would you like to hear a mortifying tale?
Yes.
Of course you would. Okay, all right. You live for it. You're just gonna tell me awful things that have happened to you. Okay, all right. When I was 15 years old, I was a dork, as one might imagine. And on the very, very first
I can't
day,
imagine that.
yes, but you get to use your imagination.
Okay.
It's true. I had terrible hair, braces. I hadn't really understood how to use retinol yet. There's a whole. God was watching.
What age should you understand how to use retinol?
Honestly, I really feel like 14 is not too young to use retinol. But that's a whole other thing. Start SPF now. All right, okay, so 15. This is the first day of freshman year of high school. And all summer long, I had been hearing all of this gossip about this family that was moving into our neighborhood, and how this boy was my age and super smart and got straight A's, unlike you, Roshani, all kinds of stuff. I thought he was going to be a massive nerd, and then I saw him, and I was smitten. And he was beautiful, and the sun was shining, and the wind was blowing, and I was so moved. My horizon tilted. And I looked at him because I'd been watching his house being built all summer, and I said, "Hey you, I know where you live!" Really loudly. And then we carpooled, and he didn't speak to me. And so I just took a page from the Edward Cullen romance handbook, and I just kept showing up. Repeatedly. We are now married. But when I tell that tale, it informs different things, right? In children's literature, it goes to, oh my God, first love is so painful and awkward, and I feel like I am dying every single day. But when I take that moment and I put it in the context of an adult book, what it actually lended itself to was the fairy tale marriage that is inside the Flower Bride, which is not at all based on mine, because the Flower Bride marriage is something else entirely. But I think one of the most disturbing things I've ever been told is, your marriage is like something from a fairy tale. Have you read them? Bro, those don't end well. Inevitably, I will be turned into a goose, someone's gonna die, everyone's gonna die, or he looks like Oscar Isaac until 7 p.m. and then becomes a crocodile beast. These are how... Beauty and the Beast! Oh! Or you can think of, what is it? Sir Gawain and the Ugly Lady, Dame Ragnell, these stories where I shall be beautiful during daytime and hideous during night. How shall you choose me? And then I think he just gives up and says, God, just pick. And she's like, oh, you broke the spell. What do you know? Giving women choices is a magical thing. But when I think about that and how it relates to fairy tales and how it was like writing this book differently, it's that the more I became curious about what a fairy tale marriage looked like as it operated, what those conditions required, who would actually participate in them. And if I were to think about the only fairy tale that applies to my marriage, it's the story of Hercules. If you know this, the myth of Hercules had all these tasks put on him. And one of them was he had to wrestle Proteus, the sea god, which is where we get the word protean, or ever-shifting, from. And Proteus changes shape when Heracles tries to hold on to him. He turns from a leopard, a boar, he turns himself into the shape of water itself. And the whole time, he holds on, and he doesn't let go. And I think that informs a lot of a long-term relationship. When you are with someone for a very, very long time, you are never just one person. You are 1,000 different people to one another. And the question then becomes, can you hold on? Can you shapeshift at the same time?
Do you guys also just feel like you got a life lesson of like immeasurable proportions? Because I just had to take a moment. So, when you went into Flower Bride, had it always started with this fairy tale angle? Did it ever start as something else and you kind of stumbled onto the fact that, oh, this is the story I'm trying to tell? Or did you know from the very get-go that that metaphor that you just used was exactly the kind of essence you were trying to capture?
I knew from the very beginning I wanted it to be a fairy tale. When I was in school, I was a medievalist, which just meant that the advice I was given was to marry rich. I tried. I've been tricked. My husband is a gold digger, and he's going to be a resident for 1,000 years. So here we are. But it was always that question of fairy tales, because I think that the reason why I come back to them so often, why I'm always so interested in mythological retellings, is because they are alive. They really, really are alive. They shape-shift with us. We're always finding something new to overturn when we revisit them. And they're full of oddities that even now still, they're just littered all throughout our lives and we don't even realize it. Everything has some sort of myth or storytelling behind it. Obviously you know what Bluetooth is.
Do you know Bluetooth, like the phone
The
Bluetooth?
phone Bluetooth. Have you ever thought about the symbol of it? The thing?
Yeah.
It's a Nordic rune. Okay, all right. To story time, here we go. Bluetooth, that symbol that you see on your phone, is a Nordic rune, and it comes from Harald Bluetooth, who was a 10th century Danish king. And his reputation was that he united the tribes of Denmark. And I guess I forgot the name of the person, but he was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And so it's sort of like this, what this Bluetooth is supposed to do is to connect a bunch of people. Hilariously, though, Bluetooth got that name. I don't know if anybody here also watches It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but he had a dead tooth. And it looked blue, like Maureen Ponderosa's dead tooth. So they called him Bluetooth. And that is what's on your phone. And it's bizarre. And it's a little tiny bit of someone's story. And those are the only things that outlive us, or that get to be immortal. And sometimes we reach for them without even knowing what they are. And I love that.
You know what that kind of reminds me of? So my sister is 11, and she doesn't realize that the save symbol on Microsoft Word is the floppy disk. Things just get lost, right, through the generations. Because I've never seen that before. I've barely seen them. I know what it is. I've seen it, in theory.
Chloe, you're killing me.
In theory.
The first time I met Chloe, she was like, do you know what be real is? And I was like, the act of existence? What do you mean? And she roped me into it, and I was just like, it was one of those moments where, again, time dilated, and I felt my cells dividing as I crept towards mortality. But it was a good time, so here we are today.
You were very startled, but you still looked glamorous.
I was like this. Be real, how?
You were being real. Be Real hasn't gone up today yet, so it's possible.
Oh God, I'm not a kid. I hate it.
They're definitely saving it for the evening because it's Valentine's Day. So they're saving it for people doing sneaky shenanigans.
What?
They do that all the time. Be Real on New Year's Eve went off at 11:59:59.
I don't understand the youth. Wait, do you want to know a fun fact?
Yes.
I'm full of fun facts. I was truly meant to be a trophy wife, and I trained for that my whole life. I have a wonderful superficial knowledge of a ton of things. I'm meant to last 6 minutes in a cocktail hour, and then move on to the next person graciously as I'm, and again, tricked. Because my birthday is Valentine's Day, which was extremely harrowing in my youth, with the bad haircut, and the acne, and the lack of retinol, and the braces, etc., etc.
See, I'm still not on retinol, so I'm getting really self-conscious about whether I should be on
You
retinol.
need to be on retinol.
Okay.
Your skin is great. You should preserve it. Again, one day you will feel your cells dividing. Mortality. There's a theme we're going
My to-do list tomorrow is get retinol, learn about the process of aging.
I'm a wonderful influence on children. But I was always so curious, what's Valentine's Day and blah, 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 and why is it called that? You know.
The patron saint of the plague.
Yes.
That's what I know.
That is true. Patron saint of the plague. Also Chaucer's poem, Parliament of Fowls, which is just a bunch of birds talking about, like, love. But what always made me super curious was the symbol of the heart. Like, where did it come from? That is not at all anatomically correct. At all. And I'm going to tell you what it really is. The heart shape that we associate with love, etc., joy, is actually the seed pod of an antique and now extinct fennel pod. That's it. Fennel, like the vegetable. It was really, really popular in this, it was grown in this Roman city known as Cyrene in North Africa. It was grown on the coast. And it was so extremely lucrative for this town that they put it on their currency. But what it really was an aphrodisiac and also a contraceptive. And that's what you get the heart shape from.
Does that still exist?
No, it's dead. The Romans ruined it. The Romans ruined a lot of great things. Like dinner feasts, you could never totally be sure. If you went to like Elagabalus's party or something, I think he drowned everybody in rose petals and said, ha ha ha, the elegance.
Wow.
Inspiration.
I want to see a book about that.
You should put it in your books.
I cannot.
And then they all drowned in flowers. Ta-da.
Well, I mean, that sounds like, isn't there that Japanese trope about growing flowers inside your heart when you can't confess your love? Someone just said the name. Yes, that.
I love that.
Yeah, it's flowers, hearts, growth, toxic love. It all goes together. Really goes together well.
I was also thinking of a creepy Japanese thing in Flower Bride, because there's a big, giant haunted house in it called the House of Dreams. And how many of you have ever heard of Hitobashira? Okay. Again, I have too much time on my hands, and yet at the same time, no time at all as I creep towards mortality. Hitobashira is the practice of burying a person under a building so that the building has a spirit. It was intended so that this area would then have a soul, as you would leave offerings before it. Maybe if you did this in a fortress, the fortress would love you. There's a sense of sentience that comes along with it. It was something I was ridiculously interested in for Flower Bride. I wanted just that idea of these houses, these places that truly do soak up your childhood memories. That when you love them so much, of course they can't help but love you back. But is that a good thing? Dun, dun, dun.
You're so wise. That's just what I'm thinking about this whole time.
God, Chloe, so old.
Okay, pivoting slightly, because there's something that I've been dying to ask.
Okay.
And I get to ask it because I'm moderating. Haha, my privilege. Anyway, so especially when I'm thinking about your Gilded Wolf series, that was like a big cast. It was like an ensemble. You were just learning about a lot of people. And as I was reading Flower Bride, I was just thinking the whole time, like, wow, this is such an intricate, beautiful character study. So as you were doing, I guess, character work for this book, was there anything that you were doing to kind of like really dig in there? Like, tell us your secrets, is my question. Because you really got in there. My hand was right in their heart.
Yes, I can see.
Right
Here
in
I
my
am.
hand.
This book. Oh God, really the secret of this book was therapy. I had avoided it. I shouldn't have avoided it. I don't think anybody should avoid it. But this is what crawled out of my brain once I finally started talking to someone. The time in which Flower Bride was written, and honestly the reason why I needed it was this sense that, so I've always gone back to mythology and fairy tales for comfort. You know how the story ends. You can feel like, I know all the words to this. And back in like 2018, 2019, I felt as though there were so many seismic shifts happening in my life. I wrapped up the Gilded Wolves trilogy. Arushan, the End of Time series was completely done. My husband and I got married. We moved back home to our home city of Atlanta. And I don't know how many of you, when you go back to the place where you were raised, how different it looks. All of a sudden, these landmarks seem shrunken and doll-like. When you go to your parents' house, you're like, were the steps always this small? Is this a placement for ants? What's happened? And you're struck by how much everything has changed, and then the realization that it hasn't changed. It's you. And all of those things meant that, well then at the same time, the pandemic happened. And all the trajectory that I had imagined for the year vanished. And I was left with all this time, which I then very, very wisely put towards myself and tried to figure out where was this disconnect coming from. And that's where the Flower Bride emerged out of. It emerged out of the love of fairy tales, the need for a fairy tale, this reminder that many people have walked through these woods before and made it out the other side. And also, this sort of self-compassion for the act of growing up, which is, I know sounds like an odd thing to say, but Flower Bride is full of monstrous girls. How many of you, raise your hand if you've been a teenage girl? It's a horrible time. It's a horrible I literally don't know anything more feral than a teenage girl. At all. We were monstrous. Absolutely monstrous. Like the stuff I used to get up to. Why did I do these things? Of running around, jumping into people's pools. We moved in packs. Nobody went to the bathroom by themselves. I think at one point I tried to smoke catnip with my friends. I don't know why. We just thought, like, well, it works for cats. Well, I don't.
Cats smoke?
No, they don't.
I don't know if this is something I'm just not aware about.
She's just like, what do millennials do? Every time. Anyway, youth is hard. At any gen, whatever that we are, youth is a hard thing. And I feel like the thing I was returning to a lot was, how could I be like that? How could I have ever said the things I said, thought the things I thought? And I was thinking about this fairy tale called Catskins, which is probably one of the most disturbing of them. Do you know how the tale goes?
It's in the book, right?
Yeah. I was going to say, do you want to tell it?
You tell it. You tell them better.
These are horrible tales. It's appropriate that we're in a church because I feel like there's a lot of overlap with the Catholic Saint Dymphna. How Catskins goes is this. Once upon a time, a king and was with his beloved wife who was dying. And she says, promise me you'll never marry again. And he says, okay, of course. Is there any exception? Because I'm going to be really lonely or dying kind of young. And she says, you can only marry the woman who is as beautiful as me. And he said, okay. And time goes by, and their little daughter grows up. And lo and behold, who she looks like. Yes, it's disgusting. It really is. These are fairy tales for kids. So what she does to get away is she demands 3 wedding gifts. She demands a dress as beautiful as the sun, a dress as beautiful as the moon, a dress that rivals starlight, and a coat of all the skins of the animals found in her father's kingdom. And then she runs away. And she does get a happy ending. But it was that concept of skins. All the things we drape on ourselves, all the identities that we try on when we're young and we're growing up and we're figuring out who we are. And then what do you do when you're quote unquote full grown and now you get a mortgage and you have to pay taxes? What do you do with all those extra skins of all the beings that you've been? You don't just shrug them off, you put them somewhere. The question is, how do you reconcile all of them?
That's the thing I love about adult fiction, that it still sometimes feels like a coming-of-age story.
Yeah.
Like sometimes, we so often, especially in like genre fiction publishing, limit like, oh, if it's coming-of-age tale, it must be young adult.
Right.
But so much of adult still feels like I'm learning how to be a person.
Right.
Actually, when I was a teenager, I was just kind of like all over the place. Now, as a new adult, not to like argue for the existence of new adult, we're not going to get into that. But now, as like an adult, it's still a coming of age. It's learning, oh, actually, that skin might be useful. And you know, not to quote Taylor Swift too much, but like it's the mirrorbalism. Like, it's a very relevant adult theme. So, yeah, all that to say, love it all. I think we are almost at the audience questions part, so get your questions ready in your brain.
Yes.
But for these 5 minutes where I still have the stage, I wanted to ask, are there any favorite scenes that you have in Flower Bride? Either that you wrote it and you were like, I'm so scared for people to read this, or I'm so excited for this to be the thing that people read and they're like, oh wow.
Ooh. There's so much that I'm excited and that I hope that you discover in the pages of Flower Bride. But I think the scene that kind of sets up the tone for the story happens in chapter 1. And it's actually like a thing that my husband and I experienced. We were at this really ridiculous bar somewhere in Tokyo. It was 1,000 years ago. And like, it's the sort of place where you breathe in the air and you just feel yourself going broke. And you're like, why am I here? We have no reason to, we need to leave, is really the thing. But then we looked at the menu, and the menu was just stupid. Like, what are you talking about? One option on this menu was a diamond martini. And it wasn't just called that because it's in a sparkling glass. It was called that because they would take some rare, who knows where it came from, vodka. They would make this drink for you beside your chair, and then a jeweler would come in, pushing this cart, and it would have a velvet tray full of diamonds that you may then select and put into your glass, and you can keep it. We spent all night waiting for someone to order that drink. By the end of the night, we probably should have just bought it. We had racked up a stupid bill, and it was just like, this is your fault. Who made me do this? But that image really clung to me, and it appears in chapter 1 of Flower Bride. One of the characters, our narrator, the bridegroom, is witnessing someone order this. And it's a kind of gross exchange. As the guy is on a date, and he's quite seedy, not the bridegroom, he's watching these people. And he tells the woman, you can keep the diamond, but you have to swallow the whole drink. And I don't know if you've ever been a kid and accidentally ate your mom's engagement ring, but it's a pretty vulgar and frankly shitty situation, metaphorically and literally. That is in many ways the tone of Flower Bride. It is opulent, but it is vulgar. It is richness, it is excess, it is not comfortable, and it's not meant to be. Hope you like it.
Wow. And on that note, no, we still have 3 minutes actually. So see, I would love that to be the parting line, but I have one more question, which I also think you will probably easily make a parting line out of. Tell us what you have upcoming next, now that Flower Bride is in the world.
This undoes all the intelligence I said. All of it.
Should we take it back? Should we take it back?
No, I think it actually really sums me up as a human being. So, I think we all contain multitudes. Some of those multitudes have literary gothicness. Some of those multitudes have demigod girls getting powers and finding love. Or some of them is just National Treasure fan fiction, etc., which is the Gilded Wolves. In 2017, I was hanging out with my very good friend, Renee Altier, who's the author of Wrath in the Dawn. And she's basically like an older sister, so I can say this. She hates me also. And we were at Y'all Fest, which is a great festival. I think someone knows what I'm going to say and is dying. And you're saying, yeah, you know, okay. All right. On one of these evenings in Charleston, whiskey was had, drinks were partaken, and I started talking about why was Santa Claus?
Oh, it's sexy Santa Claus story.
Why was Santa Claus all alone in the North Pole? And why is he wearing a red coat? It's so obvious. What if it's a color of penance? What if it's soaked in blood? What if he's a warlord? What if he looks like Henry Cavill? And Renee said, eat some fries and go to sleep. The next day, she was on a panel, and she was asked to share her worst book idea. Renee said, I don't have one of those. Let me tell you what Roshani said yesterday. And from then on, this has become literally almost a decade in the making of just like, is this stupid person literally going to throw away her storied career on a Santa Claus origin story? And you know what? Yes. Which is,
see, that was a good party line.
I mean, have is to truly do the thing that delights you. It can lead you into opposite directions that make absolutely no sense to anybody. But if you find an emotional core, if you find something worth loving about it, there's a reason it keeps calling to you. Even if now the story that was kind of a joke about Santa Claus makes you cry when you start believing it, you don't know who you are anymore, and you think maybe it's pregnancy hormones, or maybe it's Santa Claus. And that's okay. It's a fun part of existence. It makes you forget about, your cells dividing, your mortality slowly improving, etc., etc.
Until you write about mortality. And
Right.
you really think about it.
Yeah. Ugh. What is your best writing advice?
My best writing advice is to just write it, which I think is really boring writing advice.
Why is that boring? It encapsulates all the perseverance, the finishing of things.
So previously to this, my writing advice was always to be stop taking writing advice. And then I realized I was kind of just circling back in like a never-ending circle of like bad advice. So then I changed it. Previously, I would say stop taking writing advice because I'm convinced that one person's, oh, I definitely swear by this, is someone else's that does not work at all for me, and another person's that is horrible is someone's like, perfect writing process. So don't listen to like most writing process advice. Just write your book, get that book done, and face your mortality.
On that note.
We can move to audience questions.
We can. Also, I think there might be a poltergeist.
Yeah, I was wondering what that was. I thought there was construction, but then again, it's not really construction time. It could be the
That's a little
heads of
frightening. As we
gods.
said, buildings are alive. Who's buried under this?
Jesus.
We're gonna get smoted.
Struck down by lightning.
Gosh. All right. Questions. Yes. Who wants it? Or there's
Yeah,
a mic.
that's the-
Is that too much pressure though? You can also stand, shout, whatever you want to do.
Bellow into your hands.
Yes.
So, where do you get your retinol and also your cocktail party-worthy fun facts? Because I too am an aspiring choker. I'm kidding, I'm real. So, when a myth has so many different versions, how do you excavate its truest heart?
Oh gosh.
Wait, I want to have the answer to the
And
first
actually,
question as well.
please, yeah, actually do the right one.
I don't think you need to have super expensive retinol. I really like the stuff that's listed. Paula's Choice has really great things. Sunday Riley has a really great skincare thing. The only thing I will say is Elta MD SPF is the only way to live. Someone just said yes, it's the best. It's the best. All other sunscreens can just yeet themselves into the sun. They're awful.
Hashtag spawn.
Right. Oh gosh, okay. Excavating a myth. I don't think you have to put so much pressure on yourself because I think that across cultures, you're always going to find almost the same thing over and over and over again. Like let's say the swan maiden tale that appears in Irish mythology, the Selkies in Scottish mythology. If you're not familiar with what those are, a Selkie is a seal woman, and usually how the story goes is that this fisherman is out and about, and he sees this beautiful woman bathing, and he sees the skin of a seal lying on a rock, and he knows that's what the seal really looks like. So he steals her skin, and he forces her to become his wife. And they get married, etc. Usually the seal woman finds her skin and she leaves him. Sometimes he gets her back, most often not. That pattern, you see it in the Japanese tale of the crane wife. You see it in the Chinese story of the sky maiden, the heavenly maiden. It's in the Filipino story, also of the sky maiden there. You see it over and over and over again. So I think when you're trying to boil down a myth and you're thinking about all the different nuances of it, ask yourself, what are you emotionally responding to the most? Because I think in those examples or those stories, it's a story of betrayal and loss and taking something that wasn't meant for you. And then you can make it your own. And as for cool cocktail facts, I recommend Insomnia. That's really it. And also, just asking yourself, why is that there? Just always, why? What if? What's that? Why is that shaped like that? You'll find out a lot of weird stuff about Wi-Fi too. It doesn't even stand for anything. That constant daily interrogation of the mundane is what really reveals the magic.
Wow, why doesn't it stand for anything?
I don't know.
What?
draw in with your older stories and you make it your own.
Yeah, I mean, I agree completely that it's almost about finding the thing that you're most interested in, and then realizing, why am I engaging with this old story?
Yeah.
Why is it that it's so much more interesting than kind of just, doing, there's no such thing as being, like, doing something original or new anyway. It doesn't exist anymore. We've run the whole cycle of human life over and over again way too many times. But it's always about, like, oh, this idea has actually lasted through the centuries for so long.
Yeah.
This is the reason why it always, like, resonates with someone.
Yes.
Let me go burrow into that. And even if I put a different lens onto it, we're still going to come back to that single, like, base story. How do we make something new out of that? Well, kind of keep a little pulsing heart of it. That's
Yes,
how I was
completely.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Love that.
Next question. Yes, hi. Love your necklace.
So I apologize for my question because it's not for Flower Bride.
It's okay.
I didn't realize you were in Flower Bride because it was on a request of my nephew that I'm here. He loves Arusha books.
I'm very glad.
And I came all the way from Connecticut only for Arusha books and I realized it is Flower Bride.
Oh, that's okay. Well, that's,
So,
I mean, I can
so
still use
anybody
it
is here for that, I'm apologizing.
No,
but-
don't worry, don't worry.
So this is his question. He lives in San Francisco, so I am asking on behalf of him. He read all of your books except the last one, which he hasn't yet read because his father hasn't bought it for him yet. And so what he is asking me is, you have a mix of characters from both Ramayana and Mahabharata in your Arusha series. You have introduced Shurpanaka in one, you have had the Lanka, the city of gold that you call them. So are you combining the epics, because both epics are written in different time periods?
Right.
So you're combining the epics, and will we see more of descendants of those characters from Ramayana as well? Right now I think only Shurpanaka is the one.
Right.
So you're going to see any other descendants of any other characters from Ramayana as well in your next book?
Well, thank you. Please thank your nephew.
Thank
I'm
you.
glad he's really excited and loves Arusha. So the question about those two major Sanskrit epics, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. The thing about the characters that I chose, and actually this still applies to Flower Bride too, it was the sense of just being interested in the characters that I felt didn't get enough time. Suparna is an example. She's considered this demonic sister of Ravan. She has sharp winnowing nails, and when she gets insulted by the God King, she flees back to her brother, and that's why Ravan decides to kidnap Sita. But there's other versions of it. When you really look at it, she was scorned and treated quite badly. She was humiliated, all because she said, "You look pretty good. What you doing?" And they cut off her nose. They were just like, "Get away, demon." She's like, that is an outsized reaction, okay? That is rude, and I don't like it. So to answer the question for Aru, I think I've said all I have wanted to say about Arusha so far. I do have a new middle grade coming out. Oh, I should have said that instead of my Santa. Whatever. I do have a new middle grade coming out in September. This is the year where I just put all my heartache on display. It's called The Spirit Glass. It is the book that I wrote for my mother, and it's about Filipino folklore. I'm not done playing with Hindu myths, but I need to give it some breathing room. There's so many brilliant South Asian authors, writers in the diaspora who are coming into this. I'm just so excited for their stories. It might be a little on the older side, but if you might like Kaikei by Shani Patel. It's a really wonderful examination of the quote-unquote evil queen from the Ramayana. Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay.
So Flower Bride is starting in Paris, just like the other books.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering what draws you specifically to that city and how you pick where you're gonna set your new stories.
This is going to be the most disappointing answer. Tax write-off. I'm not kidding, Gail. I went on my honeymoon.
That's
I
not
saw
disappointing
the
at all.
movie.
That's a great
This
answer.
is a real thing that you can do as an artist, okay? Went on my honeymoon, I got the bill, I said, holy crap, I gotta set every single place that we visited is now a book setting. It is now a book setting. That place, the hotel, it's based off of the Hotel de Crillon where we stayed on our honeymoon. We should not have been there. Okay, just thank you for coming today so you can pay for the suite in advance. But that is honestly, sometimes it is truly based off of, this is where I want to go travel. I wonder how it's going to inspire me later. We're just going to reverse engineer inspiration. The other thing though, and this really is a reason why I love Paris so much, it's kind of haunted. It really is. There's the catacombs are there. They're stunning. There's a whole city of the dead underneath it. And there really is a sign at the entrance of the catacombs that says, "Stop, for this is the Empire of Death." Love that. Totally on brand. 10 out of 10 aesthetic. The other thing that I love about Paris is its very, very weird museums. And that is a reason why I love to go back. One of my favorite museums there, which I'm not going to butcher the pronunciation of, but it is the Museum of Lost Fairgrounds. It is full of vintage carousels. It's full of amusement park rides from the Belle Epoque era. It is beautiful, and it is absolutely haunting. You might actually recognize some of it if you watch Midnight in Paris. A lot of the scenes are quite similar. My husband, who's a giant scaredy cat, took 3 steps inside, got scared, tugged on my sleeve, I don't want to be here anymore. And then I said, look, there's games. He said, ooh, there's games. And it was fine. How do you pick your settings?
I pick the ones where I'm like, oh, I can easily ask my parents about this and get information. But what I'm hearing right now is that I need to be traveling.
You need to be traveling, right? You need to be traveling. You can also then ask museums, like, can I have a private tour? And they're like, why? I'm like, because I'm an author. And they're like, really? I'm like, yes.
So far, all of the settings that I picked, like obviously in my books you spend a lot of time in Shanghai, but then my upcoming novellas is in this like very tiny township called like Zoltuang because my dad just took me there and I was like, wow, I love these canals. I was like, okay, I'm gonna write a whole book set there, but I'm never gonna do tax write-offs because I didn't realize that was a thing.
It is a thing.
Wow.
This is why I love this person a lot, because a lot of it is just me being like, live like this, but also tell me how you live. It's good.
Okay, the whole list of things I'm learning tonight is so long. And number one is I need to go to Paris more and write a book set in Paris so that I can pay the government slightly less for a good reason.
Yes. Yes. Life advice.
Yeah.
I think that this microphone is hard. You want to just stand and shout, y'all? That's easiest. Yeah, hi.
I have a very important question.
Yes.
Are you probably the most important question tonight?
Uh-oh.
What is Minnie's brother's name?
What is Minnie's brother's name? You know, I wrote it down in a Scrivener document, and now I don't remember. I know, it's so disappointing, isn't it? Why don't you pick, and you tell me what it is, and we'll go with that. This is now your responsibility. I give it to you.
It's like how I feel when readers ask about characters' birthdays and their star
God.
signs.
Yeah, what is their star signs?
I'm like, I
what?
actually think everyone else should pick.
Yes.
their signs.
Well, you know, that actually is, there is a huge life lesson here as an artist, which is that the minute we're done making something, it doesn't belong to us anymore. Truly, it belongs to you. Which is why you get to pick names that I don't remember. Art.
But then eventually if you go back to it and revisit it and you do decide on the name, everyone just has to forget all the other ones.
Also, art.
Yeah.
Next question.
Maybe you could use my nephew's name. His name is Rita.
Do you like that name? Okay, fine. Done. Art. Art. Yeah, hi.
This is for both of you. But when you're writing, do you feel more naturally drawn to write a certain point of view? And if so, why?
Ooh, that's a really good question. First. Well, okay, so I don't know if this makes me seem less of an artist when I answer this, but when I first got started into like writing the book that would become my debut, I was like, I want to get this published. Therefore, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write in third person because all of these books that I really admire are also in third person. Is that logical? Probably not. It just so happened that it really worked for the story I was trying to tell. My reasoning was a little more lackluster, like I probably shouldn't have done it like that. But in a way, if I then backtrack to justify myself, it's because I realized a lot of these other books that I was looking up to at the time of like envisioning these mountain lights, like The Diviners by Libba Ray. It's so good.
So good.
It's so good. The way that that book kind of juggles this like omniscient, like sky god view, I was like, that is excellent. I also want to be able to like finagle that sort of narrative storytelling. Therefore, let me do third person because I know it works. I've seen it here. And then that goes back to the fact that like to be a good writer, read so much, right? Because you learn so much from how other people are doing it. You start to pick up tips and tricks. Obviously, like don't like pull from how other people are doing it. That's like, you know. But it's such a good like learning experience to look at. Okay, this works here. Let me try it out and let's see how that goes. But as a result of that, I'm a little scared to go back to first person now. I think the next thing I write, I want it to be in first person because of how it works for the story. And I haven't done first person in like 5-6 books. So I'm afraid.
It'll be good. It'll be rewarding.
I'm scared.
It'll be great. When I think about perspective, it's the same thing. It is, what does the story demand? Interestingly, I also spent like all 3 of the Gilded Wolves is third person, Arisha, all third person, and then Flower Bride was deeply first person. And there was no other way to tell it. There was no other way to get to that emotionally urgent core of the story. Where things became difficult for me, so the 2 narrators of Flower Bride are the bridegroom and Azur, who is Indigo's childhood best friend. The bridegroom is the very first time I've ever tried to write from a male point of view. If you were under 18, I'm sorry that I'm going to have to say this example, but like I spend a lot of time thinking like, what are the deep emotional moments that inform this person's perspective, right? That's what you think when you're envisioning a character. How do they walk into a room? What do they see first? Because of what has happened in their life. And because Flower Bride is so weird, I needed gothic and dark, I needed my Scorpio husband's opinion on every single piece as I was writing it. This man's biggest feedback, and the thing that he said gave it away that I was not a man, were my sex scenes. Which were so deeply awkward I had to write them in a closet in the first place. But he was just like, he like read it, and he was like, there's a lot of feelings. So I said, what? He was like, there's just like a lot of thinking. No one thinks this much. And he was just like, I don't like it. And that was a big thing about changing the perspective. It was a really big help, I suppose. My husband's reptile brain come to the rescue, and no guy thinks that. I should be thinking more about that. Like this. It's art. I think we have time for one more. Oh. Go ahead. Hi. I love that.
So, you have a cat.
I do.
Has Penny made any surprise appearances in any of your books yet, or will he in the future?
I hate this question. Teddy the cat. Got Teddy from a shelter. He looked like a sad mop. Then he became a beautiful, majestic beast. And I nursed him back to health. I took care of his earworms, his tapeworm thing, all this stuff. He's obsessed with my husband. He walks over my face just to stare at his face. He's like, excuse me while I just want to. That's my whole life. But the odd thing is, I think that Teddy much more appreciates being a behind-the-scenes commentary. He really helps me when I'm laughing by myself in my room, which is often as a writer. And then I look at Teddy, and when he rolls his eyes or does some sort of cat yawn, I'm like, well, that's an accurate reader reaction. So Teddy has not found his way into my books. Surprisingly, though, my mother's demon cat has. That cat. My mom found her in a cabbage patch. Like we have a farm, and she was walking past it, and she was very sad because her beloved farm cat had been chased off by some neighbor's dog. It was very sad. And then she heard something screaming beside the carrots, and it was this itty-bitty black cat. Its eyes weren't even open. We had no idea how it got left behind. like she bottle fed it, she opened her eyes. The cat is a demon. She's huge, she's beautiful, bushy black tail, bright emerald eyes. She sits in the fireplace. She hisses for no reason, sometimes at something in the fireplace.
This is a fairy tale. In about 5 years,
Yeah.
she's gonna grant your mom like 5 wishes.
I know. I know. She's gonna grant her 5 wishes. If you answer me these riddles 3. So somehow that cat has found her way into a story, but mostly as an homage because, again, I'm scared of her. So, do you have a pet?
Well, I have a family pet that we recently,
cat.
who he appears in my adult debut. The cat in my book is just my cat.
I
Just
love that.
completely inserted in. Well, that's a really funny story because I didn't have a childhood cat growing up. We got that cat because, I don't know if I should even be saying this because it's going to stay on the internet. So my dad tried to expand into the luxury cat business. And what I mean by that is that he tried to export live cats from New Zealand into Shanghai. This is why everyone thinks my parents are in the mafia. Okay? He wanted to get into the luxury cat business. He was just trying it out. Got one cat, as one does. And then that week he got that one cat and put it in our house. COVID hit. All the planes stopped flying into China. And that cat stayed with us all throughout COVID, and now he's our cat.
What's his name again?
Well, Scott. But I call him Mau Mau.
Scott? I can't. I really think there's no better way to close out the evening. Expect the unexpected. May your magic be surprising.
Exactly.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us this evening. This is an incredibly memorable, happy birthday for me. I'm so honored that Chloe was here and just to spend and to be my in-convo partner, and it was wonderful. And really, truly, thank you so much. Okay, I'm gonna cry. Everyone clap.
All right, just gonna echo that thank you to everyone for being here tonight. What's gonna happen now is Roshani is gonna be signing books. We're gonna pull out a table over here. Folks can line up down the aisle, and one of my colleagues is gonna be coming around with sticky notes to take your names. We do have additional copies of Flower Ride, as well as Roshani's backlist, and Chloe's books, which you can purchase out there. And if you're still with us on YouTube, you can find the link in the live stream description. That's all from me. Thank you again. Thank you to both of you. And let's give another huge round of applause.